Hello and welcome. We're joined now by Fox football analyst Dave Wannstedt and Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. Let's start with last night's game, where Eric's Rams look like a brand new team, beating the 49ers in one of the best Thursday night games we've seen in a while. Meanwhile, the team that usually dominates the division, the Seahawks, have been a mess with their offense falling apart and reports of feuds between the defense and Russell Wilson. Cowherd, are you buying the Rams as the best team in the NFC West?
No, but I'm buying the offensive personnel as the best, and in 2017 it matters. If I said to you, running back, left tackle, wide receiving core, tight ends, and the coaching staff, Rams have the best offensive group there. Now, the quarterback's emerging, but I'd rather take young than Carson Palmer old or San Francisco's question mark. And so when I looked at the Rams last night, you know what it really told me? Jeff Fisher needed to be fired because that's a real offense. The motions, the pairings, the speed, the tempo. Like, you watch that and I was like, these are real players. Todd Gurley's a star running back.
That performance last night was an indictment of Jeff Fisher. It was also a celebration of, hey, the Sammy Watkins move was the right move.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, I hate to admit it. The guy knows where the sun rises and sets now. I'll never talk about that again. There's a chance here with Aaron Donald and that defense. They play Seattle well with Jeff Fisher.
No, you're right.
So
exactly.
I like the Rams, and maybe they are the best team in the NFC West.
It's not a crazy thing to say, right?
No, it's not, because, look, they have, I think, the best running back in the NFC for sure.
Yes.
In the NFC West, at least, NFC West.
Best left tackle.
Yeah, best left tackle. Jared Goff last year was a guy that they didn't know what to do with. And no, I don't think Jeff Fisher wanted him. I don't think he was sure about him. And it shows when I say, when you stay in your lane, when you get someone that knows offense, to coach an offensive quarterback that knows offense, you see what you get. I mean, this is a guy that was the #1 pick in the draft. He threw passes last night that made him look why he was the #1 pick. He threw the Sammy Watkins pass. I mean, no one could get that but the receiver.
Beautiful.
I mean, he threw some passes. Only one knock, I would say. When he would drop back, sometimes he should step up instead of falling back, because he puts his tackles in an awkward position because they're pushing the guy around him.
Right.
But other than that, man, I mean, the Rams look very good, and they always play the Seahawks well. I mean, because why? The Seahawks have no offensive line.
Yeah, so their defense dominates their O-line.
Can I take a bucket of cold water and just dump it on all you guys?
All right, let's hear it.
Are you kidding me? I mean, they played the 49ers with Brian Hoyer. God bless them. They don't even try. They don't want to score points. They're not even.
They scored last night.
Well, Coach, maybe you should look at the other side. Okay. and the second point is, I'm serious about this now. I studied this kid. We probably had 10 Cal games over the course of his career. This is Oregon State, okay? He played great against Oregon State. How'd he play against Utah? How'd he play against USC? We all know, not very well. So nothing against Goff. I think he's much improved. Everything everybody's saying, he's getting it now. He understands the offense. But I want to see him play against Seattle and see what he does.
I will say this, though. You have to pick your spots in this league. It's a salary cap league. Seattle's O-line's terrible. The Giants spent a ton on defense. They can't block. You're whatever you call the left tackle for them. I-74. Highway to the quarterback. Okay, I will say this. If you kind of look at the symmetry of the Rams, we like some offensive pieces. They have really good special teams, and they've got some elite players in the box. They're not the Chiefs, but like the Chiefs, they didn't pick a side. They've got players on both sides. Yep. Seattle's money's on defense.
And it's all relative, too, in that division, right? I mean,
right.
You just got to win your division, even if it's with 8 wins. I don't know.
Oh, but so, Dave, I hear you saying pump the brakes. But given the division,
that
makes a difference. And Seattle's problems on offense,
be competitive.
I mean, you got Todd Gurley, you got Sammy Watkins, you got Robert Woods, you got the left tackle. You got pieces, and you got a quarterback who maybe doesn't have it up here, but he certainly has all the talent.
He's got something.
Yeah,
he's got something. Look, when the Rams started off last year 3-1, I said, look, this is not a 3-1 team, and people got mad. The Rams got mad when I said it. Right now, this is a 2-1 team. They're a true 2-1 team. They could have been easily 3-0. Yeah. So I'm not saying they're the best, but they're the best in the NFC West.
All right, so one of the weekend's big matchups, Matt Ryan's Falcons and Matt Stafford's Lions. This will be really interesting. They face off in Detroit on Sunday. Now, Ryan's the reigning MVP. If you don't know that, just listen to this show with Whitlock. He's off to another great start. But odds makers actually have the red-hot Stafford tied with Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady is the favorite to win MVP. Whitlock, when you picked your jaw up off the floor, how surprised were you with that?
He threw for 122 yards last week, and I know they won, but he threw for 122 yards.
I was shocked by this.
He's a favorite to win the MVP, and Matt Ryan is 2-0, got the best team in the NFL. I think most people would agree. This makes no sense, and I'm a supporter and like Matt Stafford. Hope the Lions keep it going and have a season. I would love for him to, at the end of the season, to be in the MVP race. But I know this is about predicting and projecting what's going to happen, but let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I like Stafford's talent more than Matt Ryan. I think Stafford's got he's got one of the best arms in the league. I think he's mostly had no running game and a horrible O-line.
None.
He's done more with less. But, man, when I look at MVP, the first thing I look at is, do you have any weapons? Matty Ice has nothing but weapons.
What does MVP mean? What does that stand
Most
for?
valuable player.
Most valuable player, sometimes with no weapons. That's what he has. He has no weapons. When they had Calvin Johnson, they said, well, he's got Calvin Johnson, he throws it up. Well, he's supposed to throw it up. He got Calvin Johnson. But he has no running game. He has no running game now. Well, they ran the ball well last week. I'm still not sold on that running game. But when you got Matt Stafford, you have a chance. Last year, he won 7 out of 8 games in the last few seconds and minutes of the game. So to me, that's an MVP.
Yeah, I'm with Eric on that. And I saw him make plays. How many times did he scramble last week for some first downs? I mean, I saw him. He's putting it all out there. And until he got hurt, just what Eric said, if he wouldn't have got hurt last year, that's when his production went from 70-some%. And all of a sudden it fell to about 50 or 40%, right? I mean, so. Well,
it's interesting. One of the things Goff is obviously better with a better coach. Could I not argue that that Matt Stafford has had kind of shaky ownership, average head coaches, they've had multiple, lost Calvin Johnson, never had a running game. I could argue it may not be Jeff Fisher bad, but could I not argue that Stafford has essentially carried this franchise for about 7 years?
You could argue it, and y'all are actually legitimizing his MVP candidacy because you're right. He has been doing it a lot on his own, but again, it is the Detroit Lions, and look, we know this about the MVP race. Generally speaking, you got to win 10 or more games.
You
do. To win the award, even though someone else may be more valuable on a 9-win team or whatever. I just don't know about the Lions. I got to see him play against the Packers. I want to see him play against Matt Ryan this week. I want to see him play against Aaron Rodgers the following week. You just can't anoint and crown this guy when there's other people, been there, done that.
The truth in sports, though, it generally comes out. Some people are late bloomers. Some people have bad bosses. But over the course, if you were a sales guy, over the course of 30 years, eventually, if you're great, you'd get the right product and the right boss. I kind of feel like Matt Stafford, he was the #1 high school quarterback. Then he went to Georgia. He was the #1 college quarterback. You don't get that without talent. I kind of feel like he's basically had all these obstacles, and this is the first time he finally has a little running game and the right coordinator. And eventually...
And a better defense.
He's just too talented not to be talked about regularly.
And he was the #1 pick. Yeah. The #1 pick.
You know what's funny? Remember last year when he came out early in the year or off-season and said, hey, we got a chance to be better without Calvin Johnson. And everyone thought that was crazy. That he was going to move the ball around. And he's done it. And I'm still here knocking the guy or questioning the guy. Hell, at the end of this, maybe he is the MVP candidate.
All right, welcome back. My co-host on Fox NFL Kickoff, the coach Dave Wannstedt. Catch up every Sunday morning. We're joined now by another longtime NFL coach, Rob Ryan. Makes me smarter every time he's on. Let's move to college football, though.
Makes me hungry.
Where Notre Dame, makes me jealous, his wardrobe. Notre Dame goes on the road Saturday at Michigan State. I think this is a much bigger game than people think. It's on Fox. Brian Kelly's been in South Bend for 8 years now. The program appears to be on a downward trajectory. Coming off his worst year, alienated people, lost 10 of his last 14 on the road. Now, this is supposed to be an elite program, but they've lost a number of notable games the last couple of years, including 5 straight against ranked opponents. Whitlock, I really believe this. If they lose this weekend, I think it becomes a phone call game. A chancellor, an AD, a booster. Hey, we got to make a list because it's not working. Do you think so?
I want to apologize to Rob and Dave before we get into this.
Well, he going to try to fire another coach.
Yeah, because that's what we do. I was going to say this. We're broadcasters, sports writers. We love to fire coaches. I agree with you, Colin. He's not at Notre Dame. They went 4-8 last year. This is possibly going 2-2 to start this season. If they have another losing season, that's not what they hired Brian Kelly to do at Notre Dame. They expected him to do what Dabo Swinney's doing at Clemson every year. You're in the title hunt. They expected him to be the equal to Nick Saban in Alabama. They're expecting him to be Urban Meyer. They're expecting him to be Jim Harbaugh. He ain't in that group, and that will get you fired at Notre Dame.
Yeah, you know what? I disagree with you because I know a lot of people up there, and the information that I have is before he made all those changes last year. Remember, he changed his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, brought in a new weight coach, recruiting guy, Bill Reese, joined him from Wake Forest. Before he made all those changes, it was him and the athletic director and everybody on the same page. So I think he's got a year after this. I think this is not his last year regardless of what happens. And he's going to win the game. He's got a good football team.
Wow, I tell you, and I am an expert on these hot seats and getting fired. We've all been fired, but, man, I'm getting tired of it. But to see this program, I mean, shoot, as a young coach coming up, I always dreamed about, man, I'm going to be the head coach of Notre Dame. I mean, every
not
coach,
with that haircut.
Yeah, well, and maybe not. But, I got a little Irish in me, so it would have helped. But the bottom line is, when you take over that program, you should have one of the best coaches in the country, without question. And you should win. I mean, you're in college. You should develop, have the program set up to develop and keep winning and long-term winning with success. And he did a nice job early when he got there. It's just, when you have a losing record at Notre Dame, it's hard. You're recruiting the best players in the country all over the place. You're on television nationally every week. I mean, you ought to be able to recruit some great players. So it's interesting that they've fallen on such hard times. And
Rob,
I think his seat's hot.
You make an interesting point that I want to follow up with Colin about is Brian Kelly did get off to a great start.
So did Charlie
Tyrone
Weiss.
Willingham got off to a great start. Charlie Weiss got off. What happens at Notre Dame that you start strong, your recruiting classes are great every year? How come you can't sustain it?
Yeah, you know what happened? Because I talked to Bob Davie about this, who followed Lou Holtz. Sure. And he said it's so easy at Notre Dame to start recruiting from the magazines. I mean, you got these 5-star recruits, and just like you're saying, Rob, they all want to come to Notre Dame. Sure. And, and you really got to do your homework, and I think Brian recognizes that, and he, revamped his recruiting, and he brought in some people to help him. But it's so easy because the 5-star recruit's calling you saying, I want to come. And maybe the 3-star or the 2-star recruit might be a better player.
Dave, let me follow up on that.
Man, you got to be careful there. Bob Davie said that, the ex-head coach at Notre Dame. He said, it's tough.
So tell me this, Dave. Does that affect your mentality when you're getting the best recruits? Do you not concentrate as much on development? Is because I followed Bill Snyder at Kansas State. He got a lot of 2- and 3-star recruits. And so his whole program was about developing that player so that when they're juniors and seniors, do coaches that get the great recruits not develop as much?
No, you look at Urban Meyer, you look at Nick Saban, they develop players, and they're getting the top classes. So I think, the coaching staff has to do it. Now, when you're turning guys over and changing systems, it's not easy. This year's team, you know what it reminds me of? Remember the team they had when he went to the championship game with Everett Golson, the quarterback? Yeah. Remember him? This Brandon Wilbush kid, who's his quarterback this year, you watch. This team at Notre Dame, I think, is a good football team.
Listen, since they got to the championship game, they have the same winning percentage as Duke, Minnesota, and Nebraska. We've got to come to terms with what Notre Dame is. They're slightly better. They're a low-level bowl team in terms of winning. And I should say this. They also have an odd schedule. This is part of the Notre Dame dynamic. By not joining a conference, Jason, they don't get to play regional games. They're going to, they play an NFL.
Not everywhere.
They're flying, so their travel is far worse than a Pac-12 team. And by the way, they'll fly west in week 7. It's not like you start the year out west and come back to the south. So I think their ambition and their reluctance to join a conference, it creates fatigue within the program. I think these, by the way, Notre Dame always feels to me better in September than late. Their teams look worn out late in the year.
All right, let's move back to the NFL, where the Giants travel to Philadelphia on Sunday. New York has had a disastrous start to the year, scoring just 13 points and losing their first 2 games. Now Ben McAdoo is feeling the pressure, saying this week, quote, "A lot of people are counting us out." He's right, and I think he's on the hottest seat in the NFL. Listen, if they start 0-3, lose to Philadelphia, I think his seat is hotter than Chuck Pagano's in Indianapolis and Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati. Again, I know he's just in the second year of his program. It's been Bill Callahan, I think, is the last coach that started out good his first year, second year got fired. I think it could happen to Ben McAdoo again. They spent a lot of money on that defense. They're in win-now mode. You got Odell Beckham Jr., you got Eli at the end of his career. I think the pressure's on McAdoo. He's on the hot seat.
I disagree for 2 reasons. One, the Mara family is historically not impulsive. They generally give an extra year rather than one less year. That's the first thing. The second thing is he has one thing helping him. There is a dialogue or narrative building that Eli is shot. I think it helps him. Now, whether that's true or not, you're starting to now, you open the tabloids, they have turned on Eli. Because everybody loves Odell Beckham so much, it's like, well, it's not Odell's fault. So I think there is this sort of sense that, does he get an extra year because, well, I mean, look at Eli. He can't run. He throws picks. We don't have a running game. I think the incompetency almost helps him.
Boy, I tell you what, that's I would just like to see a little slide protection go to the left to help that left tackle out. Maybe a back to chip over there. They're in all these spread formations, and you know, come on, McAdoo. Look, here's the thing. The heat's on, I get it, and it should be. You got to help Eli Manning. Eli Manning is still throwing 75% completions. He's Eli Manning. Give him a little chance to throw back there to the great receivers that they have. Get Marshall involved in the offense, you know, where he actually cares. I mean, he's an all-pro receiver 100 years. He needs to start getting involved, but the only way you can get him involved is protect the quarterback. So I'm tired of watching the guy go one-on-one with no help, no turn protection, no chip. I mean, come on, wake up. I mean, and
to you, that's coaching.
I know it's coaching. I know it's coaching.
Yeah, I don't know if he's under more. I kind of agree with Colin a little bit. Is he under some pressure? Sure. But I think they don't even have the tabloid papers in Indianapolis, probably in Cleveland or Cincinnati, right? So I think it's where he's at brings a lot more heat too.
Sure.
You know, you've been up in New York, you've coached up there. I mean, everything is magnified if you're coaching in New York compared to Cincinnati and Indy. So I think there's more noise, but I don't think he's really under more pressure to win than maybe Marvin is or Pagano.
We historically, I mean, Marvin Lewis, people have been calling for 3 years for his job. We do have a history. Jerry Jones has actually been pretty patient with coaches. Like, I think, when I think of hot seat, the first thing I think of is it a crazy owner or a realistic owner? Like, Jerry gives you an extra year. The Mara family gives you an extra year.
Jerry, are you talking about Jerry himself? Or are you talking about a coach?
Well, that's because you guys at the end, it was Jimmy and Jerry. But the Mara family, people wanted Tom Coughlin out, Jason, like 2 years earlier.
I think the point you're making and Dave's making is one. Marvin's been there 15 years.
I know.
He's had his shot. Chuck Pagano, they stuck through him through cancer and everything. They fired the general manager. He's had his shot. And so maybe, you know, there's more reason to fire him. But again, Ben McAdoo, like Rob Ryan is talking about, they don't look properly coached. He's supposed to be an offensive genius. He's talking about giving up the play calling. He's the guy he's criticized Eli Manning. He's the guy eventually, to me, and he's got a lower profile to me than Marvin Lewis and Chuck Pagano. You know, I know, again, he's supposed to be this great play caller, but he looks like Sean Payton now, not the Sean Payton that was the great play caller and guru. You know, he looks like an assistant coach who's been promoted above his responsibility.
Whether that's right or not, if you got rid of him, it wouldn't be an outcry in the city. Like, I mean, he doesn't have a big fan base, right? Coughlin had a
right there who was up for the same job and who they love, and the family, Mara family and Steve Tisch. So I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't look right. This team should be playing a lot better. Their defense is playing great. They've got great talent there. Jerry Reese does a good job getting these players here. Let's protect the left tackle and see what happens.
And I'll just add one more thing. Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, but, you know, the Cowboys have a great brand. The Packers have a great brand. But for a coach, the most prestigious job to me is the New York Giants. It's in New York. It's the Giants that have been part of NFL history from the very beginning. It's the best job in football, and eventually they're going to want the best coach. All right, welcome back to the show. Eric Dickerson and Rob Ryan are back. Let's move to Aaron Hernandez. According to researchers, the former tight end's brain showed signs of severe CTE when it was studied after he committed suicide in prison back in April. Now his attorney has filed suit against the NFL and the Patriots, alleging that the league and team hid the true dangers of football. Oh, boy. Bill Belichick addressed the situation today.
Well, that's really, the whole medical questions are, one that come outside of my area. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a trainer. I'm a coach. So the medical department is, they handle the medical part of it. That I don't do that.
Colin, I want your reaction to the Aaron Hernandez news.
My first reaction was, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So here's a guy that 11 years ago, his dad dies, and his mother acknowledges that he changed as a person. He was angry and defiant, even the way he talked to his mother. There were teams that passed on him. The Boston Globe reported he failed 6 drug tests. Urban Meyer put Tim Tebow in his room because he knew he was trouble. That's CTE's fault. Like, this is the world we live in. Like, nobody's culpable. So the idea, listen, I'm not a doctor either, and CTE is perhaps widespread, perhaps not. But to blame it for Aaron Hernandez, when even his mother acknowledges 11 years ago that he changed as a person and became increasingly violent toward others, and even his speech toward her, I don't think it's fair to blame the NFL for.
Virtually all my friends are football players or former football players at the high school, college, or professional level. And these type stories are an indictment of, like, football players. It's like, if you play football, you're now a dangerous human being because your brain has been wrecked and damaged to a point. And so it's insulting to me. I know too many, and I don't want to just go with anecdotal evidence, but I just know too many football players that are fine, upstanding citizens, not violent. This guy has been violent long before he got to the NFL. He was in trouble at Florida for violence. He was investigated for violence at Florida. He was clearly a gang member. Aaron Hernandez's problems are Aaron Hernandez's problems. To indict football, I think, would probably be the one sport and institution that probably tried to help. How many coaches tried to help this guy year after year after year to try to get him on the right path? But now football's the problem with CTE. That made him kill people.
Well, first of all, I want to sue too because I have to move seats, so I'm suing. I'm suing. First of all, second of all, can you say thug? He's a thug. I mean, and that's what he was. I mean, it's like saying all moms are good moms, all dads are good dads, and it's not true. And some kids are bad kids. It is what it is. This is a bad kid. You try to use the CTE thing. Look, as a football player, we are for 3 hours or 3.5 hours. We're hyped up. To hit, kill. But when you come back down to normalcy. This is the normal life. You don't go out thinking, all right, I gotta hit another guy. As I walk by the grocery store, if a guy says something to me, you just can't lose your cool all the time. So to me, this is just a way to get money. I mean, it really is because.
That's what it feels like.
I mean, it is. I hate to say it. I mean, and I think a lot of guys, we do have. I'm sure I have a form of CT. I think most players do, but we're not violent. We know the difference between right and wrong. We're not going to go by and do a drive-by shooting because a guy disrespects me, because a guy says something to me. I got to kill him now. I got to. I just got to kill him.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you look at him. He's going to sue the NFL and the Patriots. Probably the two greatest things that this guy had in his life. The years that he was playing for the Patriots, he became a world champion. He's playing in the National Football League with the greatest competitors, the greatest talent, and the greatest people in the world are playing. Your teammates, your brothers, and now they're going to sue this. This was the greatest thing in this damn guy's life. Was the NFL, was the New England Patriots, and you're going to sue them. What, for what? You know, I mean, this kid had some issues. But I promise you one thing, I guarantee what gave this kid the satisfaction, as troubled as he might have been, and obviously he was, were those two things, and you're going to go ahead and sue him. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
You know, Ray Lewis, your friend has said this, and our friend has said, you know, football, it saves lives. Like the narrative now, the narrative now in America, and it's largely the written word media, is football's killing people. And I'm like, no, like I grew up in a small, poor town. Like football games were a big deal. We didn't have a movie theater in my hometown. You had to drive 2 hours to get to Seattle. Football Fridays in my hometown, in little old Washington State, like they are some of my great high school memories. My daughter goes to school in Las Vegas. The football games are the center point, the emotional center of the school. They have this great football program. Football has done so much for so many, not just people, communities in America. What's that? Look at Green Bay.
Listen, you make an excellent point, and sometimes when I talk about this, it comes across like I'm only talking about the black kids that are touched by football, because I was taken to a college campus out of a poor working environment to a college campus because of football. But, you know, my lawyer and one of my best friends is here today. He grew up in the southern part of Missouri. His dad was a high school football coach, working class. He went to the University of Duke because he could play football. One of the greatest human beings I know, lawyer, great guy, great family. Football touches people in so many different people in so many different ways. And again, I'm just a big defender of football. I understand his family's going through a lot of pain and hurt. The man is gone. His reputation is ruined. But that's on him. He did those things. He got involved with those situations. Football, for all, and it's not perfect by any stretch. It's just as flawed as anything else in America. But it helped this young man and so many other people. This is just the wrong thing to do for this family. Whatever wealth and enjoyment it provided his family, if it's gone now, that's on Aaron Hernandez. Don't blame the Patriots and Roger Goodell and all the other NFL owners.